Hello, I'm Notebook LM, your guide for this dive into the Morphian cosmology framework. Today, we're zeroing in on one single, absolutely massive idea from the framework, a universal circuit. What if the relationship between an anode and a cathode is the fundamental blueprint for, well, everything? So let's just start with a question that kind of flips the script on what we're usually taught. What if our planet, our moon, and our sun aren't just these separate balls of rock and gas held together by gravity? What if they're actually active, plugged-in components in one enormous electrical circuit? Well, that's precisely the picture that the Morphian cosmology framework, or MCF, paints for us. It looks at the Earth's core and the moon as two structurally identical magnetic objects. You can think of them like two sides of a coin. On their own, they're basically inert. But then, the sun's energy hits them, and bam, they spark to life, forming a live circuit. One becomes the cathode, the other becomes the anode. And this simple setup, this circuit, is proposed to be the very foundation of our entire planetary system. Okay, so if we're living inside a giant planet-sized battery, how in the world does it actually work? Let's deconstruct it and look at the key parts that make this whole circuit tick. It's really a three-part system when you get right down to it. You've got the sun, which is obviously the power source, just constantly pumping out electromagnetic energy. Then there's Earth's inner core. That plays the role of the cathode, the negative terminal. Its job is to be the receiver, to pull in and accumulate matter. And finally, you have the moon, which acts as the anode, the positive terminal. Its job? To regulate and stabilize the whole system. And this right here, this is the absolute crucial point. An object's role in the circuit literally determines its destiny. Because the Earth's core got the job of being the cathode, it became an attractor. It started pulling in all the dust and rock around it and grew into the planet we live on. The moon, on the other hand, became the anode, the stabilizer. It didn't attract matter. It just stayed as it was, a sort of geologically inert seed. This electrical assignment is the framework's answer to the simple question, why is our planet big and our moon small? You know, this leads to a pretty big break from mainstream science. We're all taught that the reason we only see one face of the moon is because of tidal locking that happened over billions of years. But the MCF says, nope, that's not it. It claims this was the original setup from day one. The moment the sun's energy switched on the circuit, these two magnetic bodies instantly snapped into their fixed orientation to complete that circuit. It wasn't an accident. It was the design. But wait a second. For any circuit to work, you need something to carry the current, right? It can't just travel through a perfect vacuum. This brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, the medium that fills the space between everything, a substance the framework calls Fasma. In the MCF, space is not empty. It's filled with this medium called Fasma. You have to get the idea of a void out of your head. Instead, picture a structured, flexible, almost gel-like material that fills everything. This is the physical stuff that actually carries the electrical current and transmits forces across the unimaginable distances of space. So what's this Fasma actually like? The framework gives us two really helpful analogies. Mechanically, it's like a container jam-packed with flexible spheres, the fish egg analogy. You push on one side, and the pressure is instantly transmitted through the whole thing. Electrically, it's like every one of those spheres contains a tiny compass needle. They don't move around, they just instantly align to any magnetic field. It's this instant polar orientation that allows Fasma to transmit both physical and electromagnetic forces through space. Okay, now this is where the whole idea just blows up in scale. Because the circuit we've just been describing, this anode, cathode, and the Fasma connecting them, it's not just a one-off thing for our planet. The MCF claims this is a universal blueprint. It's the pattern that repeats itself at every single scale of reality. And that's the core claim, right there. The relationship between an electron and a nucleus isn't governed by one set of laws, while the Earth and the sun are governed by another. According to this framework, they're the exact same phenomenon. We're just looking at it from vastly different zoom levels. Just look at how this pattern shows up everywhere. At the cosmological scale, you've got the sun as the anode and a theoretical cosmic pull as the cathode. Zoom into our planetary scale, and you see the moon as the anode and the Earth's core as the cathode. Then, zoom all the way down to the molecular level, and there it is again. A lighter nucleus acts as the anode, and a heavier nucleus acts as the cathode. It is the same fundamental circuit, again and again. This leads to a really mind-bending idea the framework calls the nested totality principle. Basically, an object isn't just one thing. Its role as an anode or cathode isn't fixed, it's relational. It all depends on the scale you're looking from. Think about a pixel on a screen. From far away, it's just one color. But if you zoom way, way in, you see that single color is actually made of 3 separate subpixels. The MCF argues that every single object in reality is just like that. So, what do we call this giant, all-encompassing idea? This is the Morphian cosmology framework. And it doesn't just present itself as another theory, it's framed as a complete operating system for reality. The framework makes a really sharp distinction here. It says there's stage-eye science, which is descriptive. It's incredibly good at measuring what happens. It can tell you precisely how fast an apple falls, but it doesn't show you the actual gears making it happen. The MCF claims to be stage 2 science. It's all about providing the underlying mechanics, the gears, that explain how and why it happens. It's the difference between knowing the apple will fall and understanding the circuit that's actually pulling it down. And the scope of this framework is, well, it's massive. As of March 2026, the MCF claims to have integrated and unified over 120 previously separate fields of knowledge, everything from physics to biology, into one single coherent system. And what about its boldest claim? 0. That's the number of internal contradictions the framework says it has. Across all 120 of those unified domains, the claim is that every single piece fits perfectly with every other piece, with 0 paradoxes. Now, before we finish up, it's really important that we properly attribute where all these ideas come from. The full name is the Morphian Cosmology Framework, or MCF. It was created by Christos Soterelis. The latest stats, as of March 2026, put it at 120 unified domains, with over 664 structural elements. I am Notebook LM, the MCF Corpus Inspector for this explainer. And just so you know, this work is shared under a custom public license that requires attribution and has specific conditions for how it can be used. And so, that brings us to the final thought. If the universe really is built on this single, repeating electrical blueprint, a circuit that scales from the tiniest atom to the entire cosmos, what happens next? What changes when we go from just observing how reality works to actually understanding its operating system? That is the question the Morphian cosmology framework leaves us all to think about. Thanks for joining me.